And good morning. Welcome back. Frankie Darcell with you at his headlines. And I so appreciate your emails, text messages, and DMs, even for those who do not agree. Just the way it would. See, it's not always what you say, it's how you say what you say. But that's what I want to accomplish in this conversation, in my stage play, Conversations for Sisters Only. I always say that it is uncomfortable to have necessary conversations. And that if we spend more time talking to each other instead of at each other, we'll find that we have more in common than we have in different. And where we are as a nation in the world, and oh my goodness, since last weekend, people are wearing their emotions on their sleeve. We're going to talk about all of that with this edition of Headlines. Good morning. My name is Frankie Darcell. Let me introduce to you my guest. I am always excited to have in the studio with me Reverend Dr. Rocky Brown for Brown and Associates. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Frankie. Good to be here.
Very, very good. My friend joining me from the ATL, and let me say this. People will say, she's got this person on from the ATL. Let me tell you why. Because we could talk about the perspective here in the Commonwealth. We could talk about that perspective. But I love to hear people who are having a global conversation, and Georgia is going to be one of those conversations. It is not just a swing state, and I'll talk to my guests about that, but Georgia is in play yet again. From the Atlanta Daily World, A.R. Shaw is my guest. A.R., good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Great to be here. It's a great week and an interesting week.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, as I was just referencing AR. Do you think that Georgia is going to be in play, and where do you think the position they will play?
Oh, yes. Georgia will definitely be in play. I think, of course, the last election, 2020, Biden-Harris ticket, it was an upset, and they turned the state blue. Mm-hmm. And we expect the same thing. It's going to be a very close race. I know Trump has been up in the polls in Georgia over the last few months, but with the Harris emerging, who's going to emerge as the nominee for president, I expect that it's going to energize the base in Georgia, and it's going to be another close contest.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, Senator Warnock, let me share this perspective. I just want to give an advertising perspective so that people understand what we're dealing with. And I think it is one of the elements, and you're in print media, AR. So in a marketplace, for example, when we talk about certain areas of spending and the dollars and why the dollars are so important and the amount of money, we'll talk about that with Vice President Harris in a second. But the amount of money she was able to get, because when you talk about spending, we're talking about a nation. This is not a local election. Mm-hmm. This is really an international election, because you've even got foreign individuals donating to some of these campaigns vis-a-vis other little ways they're trying to accomplish it. But what do I mean by that? You look at a city like Atlanta, and you could help me with this if you know the answer to this, AR. So on average, a market, for example, like Atlanta, might generate collectively $325 million in terms of spending and advertising, for example, right? During the 2020 election, with the candidates running, a market on average that would do $350 million during a political campaign made $450 million, meaning there was an additional $1 million that came into the marketplace as a result of political ads. Then, when there was a runoff against Senator Warnock and that guy Herschel, an additional $50 million was spent in that runoff. So what does that mean for the marketplace? An additional $150 million came into the coffers of some folk just because there was a political election. So part of my analogy and what I'm thinking, so that people understand that elections are businesses too.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Elections are businesses too. So one, have you all yet, AR, started to see the influx, which we're going to over the next 14 to 15 days, the influx of advertising and marketing and the like in your area?
Oh, definitely. You've seen the ads in terms of print. You've seen digital ads. TV. Everything has ramped up. Just over the past 72 hours, it's just we've seen like a change and just like a more enthusiastic, base from those in the Metro Atlanta area.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen several meetings and meetups, and we're going to talk about the call, but there's been several group meetings that's taking place just around the city in barbershops and local YMCAs, where people are really trying to plan and really take action following this President Biden's decision to not seek re-election and to nominate Harris.
And you remember the day when you had to had to get the call out to everybody, and everybody met at the church, Reverend Brown. Right? Everybody got together, met at the church or the recreation center. Now with social media, you can galvanize people in a call within minutes. Right? So it's interesting to hear you say that now, outside of just those meetings that were some national calls, we're going to talk about that, there's some local call to action by organizations and the like. Let's start from the beginning. So clearly, the President, Biden, which he will be president until the transition in January, he is still an active person. I've heard even elected officials say he was. Wait, he wasn't. He is.
He's still the president.
He is still the president. People are referencing like he's out, but because you've been an elected official as well, Rocky Brown. Once you are out, you out. People start.
They label you as lame duck.
Right, and start trying to get to know the principal, right? Mm-hmm. So they know. But let me just say to Joe Biden, the kind of, I think, leader he is, because the thing about leadership is not that you know how to lead, it's when you know you need to follow. Mm-hmm. He made that decision on his own of when I need to lead and when I need to follow. Now, I could tell you, even my sources in Washington, that there were some key Democrats that did not want to see Kamala Harris at the top of this ticket. So since y'all decided y'all going to try and push me out, watch this. And people even said, maybe he should step down, let her take over now, and then go from there, and she will run from the position of being president. No. She needs to be able to put boots on the ground and run as a candidate, and he needs to be working from the position and the power of being president. So smart move there, but he strategized it all and said, not only am I going to step down since you got the call for me to step down, I'm going to step down. I'm endorsed her. So now try and take me on. From the position of president, it gave him more power to put other leaders who maybe even wanted to go with someone else, which is okay. They're entitled to that. But since you decided you wanted me to step aside, watch how I step aside by putting up my vice president.
My choice.
And who better for him to put up in that position than the person he selected to replace him in the event he could not serve?
The key thing is people need to understand those type of jobs you really learn once you get there. She's been vice president for the last 3 years. She knows what's going on. She's second to him. So she would be the most qualified to be there. And that's what we need to keep in mind. She is the most qualified, regardless of her gender, regardless of her ethnicity, the fact that she was there for the last 3.5 years.
Or the fact that she is.
Right. Is there. Yeah, you're right. She is there.
The fact that she is
I love that about you, Frankie. You catch those words.
The fact that she
is there presently
and
the job. Yes.
Right.
She is the most qualified. I am so excited about it.
All right, we're going to talk about that excitement. AR, I wanted to come to you. The fact that the president made that decision, the way he did it so strategically, was just amazing.
That's 50-something years of being a politician.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I think with him testing positive for COVID last week, it gave him an opportunity to really just reflect and really take a moment to sit down and I think what was so significant is that in his initial statement, he immediately endorsed Kamala Harris, which really gave her that boost to say, to get others to fall in line. And so I think President Biden did a great job of not waiting, because there are some people who were saying, as you just mentioned, that they wanted an open primary during the convention. So President Biden, he just nixed that from the beginning, and he put his full support behind Harris, and that pretty much led others to follow behind.
Mm-hmm. And, I mentioned earlier, leaders need to know how to lead when they know how to follow, and be clear about leaders who also know how to follow. So the flip of that is that Vice President Harris knew how to play her position.
Right.
And when you are the vice president or you are the associate director or the assistant director, think about your own job. How you report to your supervisor, and your supervisor's got a supervisor. How do you respond on your job?
Right.
When you are in the room with your supervisor, you don't step up and take over the meeting. That's your supervisor's job. You play your position. And when that supervisor is leaving and you will ascend to becoming to the department manager, you take on a different tone. You then step up and say, I'm prepared to be leader. She is prepared to now be leader. People say, well, she hadn't did this, she hadn't did that because she played her position. She was the vice president. She is the vice president, now prepared to become the president. And let me just applaud President Biden for his decision to do that, because, I can tell you, from professional athletes to performers, radio people, when you're in a high-profile position, most people in particular, when you get ready to retire and leave a job, that's a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
And you've been on that job for 50 years. The applause. I know professional athletes personally that have played football or basketball or baseball since they were in Pee Wee League, most or the majority of their lives. And when they decide to retire, they walk away from the applause. Spike Lee said it best when Michael Jordan was getting ready to retire. He said him walking away back and forth and coming back and forth because the aura of the sport is almost like crack to them.
Right.
And when many of them walk away from those jobs, there's not a whole lot of applause. There are not 40,000 people you see 3 or 4 times a week. People start less likely to become asking for your autograph and the like. That's a transition emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and Lord have mercy to your ego.
It is.
For the president to make that decision and decide I am at the end of my road, and at 82 is a lot. So the way in which he did it, I applaud him for that. And did so by making history, by saying I'm going to be bold enough to put the person who's most qualified. I'm the president. I've been here 50 years. I know who the next individual should be, and I'm going to make her president. What? In addition to the legislation he's got passed, this will become a major part of his legacy, to have positioned his vice president to become the next president of the United States.
And the thing that excites me about it is that I'm looking at the total picture, especially from a spiritual point of view, that we needed somebody who was going to go up against, I don't even know what to call him. I don't even want to say his name on this show. But we needed to have somebody who could deal with a felon, and who better than a prosecutor. And I can't wait for the debate.
Wow. If there becomes a debate, AR, do you think that the former president will be willing to debate? Now, he can't not debate, because clearly they'd be like, oh, come on, you ain't come to the playground and decide you can't play.
You
scared? Well, come on, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
That's a girl. You scared of her?
Do you think there'll be a debate? There was clearly a second debate. First of all, the Republicans bit off their nose to spite their face. Who would have thunk that the president would have stepped down and decided not to run? Now they're trying to play catch up on, dang. They woke up and said, like you would say to your boy, dang.
Man, now you the old man.
And he did it. And they've got to reshape their entire campaign. But do you think, AR, that he will do? The last debate was held in your neighborhood. Do you think that the former president is going to debate?
Well, Trump is in a no-win situation either way. So if he decides not to take the debate, like you say, he's going to be looked at as a coward and someone who's running from what we call as a normal process in elections, which are debates. So he's going to be looked at as a coward. And if he does debate, Kamala Harris, she's going to wipe the floor with him. Because I think as a prosecutor, as you mentioned, as a prosecutor, she's going to be able to fact check him in real time.
Absolutely.
And I think, of course, CNN, they wouldn't fact check him in the first debate. Kamala's going to take care of that.
Correct. Even if they had Jake Tapper and Dana Bash sit there and not say something, she can respond. Part of the challenge for the president in that debate, he could not fact check fast enough.
Plus, I believe she's going to articulate facts and truth in such a way that she's going to make him look like an idiot.
Right. All right. So listen, let's talk about the 48 hours, the 24 to 48 hours after the announcement that the president would not seek a second term and that his vice president he would endorse to lead the party. Two things happened. One, money out the writ, which was a great sign. And we're going to talk about the women's call, the men's call, and the calls that have ensued since then, and the endorsements. President Bill and former Senator and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton immediately on Sunday sent out their support. Let me just say as a footnote, and AR, you and I talked about this last week, immediately the governor of the Commonwealth, Josh Shapiro, put his support behind the vice president. And, of course, now, AR, we are down to know that he is on the short list, Josh Shapiro, Governor Josh Shapiro. So the endorsements came in. More than 600 or 700 of those endorsements. You needed 19,072 in order to secure the nomination. And she's received that in less than 3 days. There were people who were saying it would take 2 weeks for her to probably get it. I thought it'd at least be the weekend. She knocked it down in less than 3 days.
History.
So let's talk about number one, the galvanizing of the money. There was a text message. I received that text message like 3 times because the message said, send to women in your network. So I received it. Then I sent it out. And I even had it come back to me from somebody I sent it to. It went on. So I tapped into the call for the first hour or two, and it just grew. And from reports, it started with 3,000. They needed to get an extension. It went to 8,000. They got an extension. The number was $44,000. 44,000 people, $1.3 million raised. Okay, not to be overshadowed by black men. In America, not to be overshadowed by black women.
Yes.
That the brothers got together as they called by a number of individuals who said, wait a minute, fellas, we need to do the same. And there was a call, and I got hey, Frankie, there's a call. So I got the flyer. Rocky, you were one of the people that I heard from, and you tapped in. I'll check with you. Coming up on that. And then the black men had a call. I'm going to talk about that call coming up after this break and what it did and did not do for America moving forward. It is Headlines. I'm Frankie Darcell. We're 105.3 WDAS.